Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in snowy Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here with Yitzchak Reuven today, the 16th day of the month of Shvat, 5776. It's the 26th of January, 2016. And this week, the Torah portion, Parashat Yitro. Yeah, it's the day after Tu B'Shvat. And of course, that's the day that we learn and emphasize that the majority of the rains have usually come, according to our sages in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, that talks about how the 15th day of Shvat, according to the school of Hillel, is the Rosh Hashanah, the new year for trees, and how on that day there is a sort of special energy that's released in the natural world. And here we are, here in Jerusalem. It's about the coldest that it's been all winter. It's maybe the coldest week on record. And of course, we have been duped by the various weather services because we were expecting a huge snow.
Hey, the storm is still upon us, Rabbi. We still get that snow.
It's still upon us.
We've had a little bit of snow.
Yeah, we've had a lot of snow in the north. Dusting, come on. We haven't had
snow in Gush Etzion. There's a lot of snow in the country.
Yes, it's been snowy here and there, but it's not the tremendous storm so far that was expected. But then again, by the time this show is uploaded and broadcasting, I may be completely proven wrong, and we may be totally inundated with snow.
We'll may have to retape this, and of course, we're not talking about anywhere like the amount of snow that's falling in the east coast of the United States.
That's true. Now. We did see photographs from Maryland and as far as North Carolina and Washington, D.C. and all kinds of places.
Lots of snow.
Really a lot of snow. But Tu B'Shvat has its message of renewal, and part of that mystique and part of the whole amazing idea of Tu B'Shvat being a harbinger of the revitalization, the new life of spring, and for human beings as well, because it's really all about the centrality of man. The fact is that it's in the heart of darkness. It's in the middle of the winter that we get this shot of energy. So what better time for the temperature suddenly to drop to zero here in that Celsius, of course.
Perfect timing. Couldn't have said it better, Rabbi.
Yitzchak, may I please allow that the words of Torah that we should speak in this program should be for the elevation of the soul of Hilka, the daughter of Yitzchak. Today is the anniversary of her passing, so may that be a merit for her soul. Speaking of which, Amen. This week, Parashat Yitro, basically, this is what it's all about. I mean, we've come this far. We've come through the Egyptian bondage and exile and redemption from Egypt, the exodus from Egypt. And we were talking about the past few weeks, both on Temple Talk and in our video lessons, the whole process of what the people of Israel were going through in Egypt, and the whole dynamic with Pharaoh, and we come to the splitting of the sea, which heretofore, that was, in other words, the climax of everything as far as I can see, as far as I'm concerned. That was it. That was absolutely the most earth-shattering, amazingly sensory perception of the oneness of God. Well, that's not.
We won't analyze the structure of that sentence.
Okay.
But yeah.
Of the oneness of God that could be, but now everything is really about to pale again until this point, because now we're going to be coming to Sinai, the Sinai Revelation, and that's what it's all about. That was the whole point. That was the whole point of leaving Egypt. Didn't Hashem say to Moshe early on in Parashat Shemot, and you're going to serve me on this mountain? Right, you're going to serve me on this mountain.
That was the whole 3 days in the wilderness. That was the whole deal. Let my people go, that they go serve me.
But Yitzchak, the thing is, this Parashat Yitro, is such a climax in a way, or rather, you could look at it that it's the beginning of everything. But the point is, this is from the whole get-go, from the beginning of everything. This was the point. This was the point of Hashem choosing the forefathers. This was the point of his developing a relationship with them. When he told Avraham that you'll be the father of many nations, and he told him when it came to Avraham talking about when it came to Hashem talking to Avraham about his judgment of Sodom and how important justice is and how important it is, for the right way of living.
This is what he had in mind.
But Yitzchak, let's go further back to the creation, to the whole idea of Adam HaRishon. Everything, actually, our sages tell us that creation itself was conditional upon Israel's acceptance of the Torah at Mount Sinai. This is the beginning of everything now. Mm-hmm. So first of all, it's so amazingly, powerfully poignant. That's not such a good word for what I want to express, but the beginning of this Torah portion is focused on justice, the structure of justice.
True.
So now, there is a controversy amongst the sages because of the fact that we have a principle that there's not necessarily any chronological order in the Torah. So there are those that say that perhaps Yitro comes after the giving of the Torah. But the point is, as the crow flies, as we read, this whole parsha of Yitro's advice to Moshe about how to effectively inaugurate a system of justice, it came before the giving of the Torah itself. Mm-hmm. And in other words, the foundation of everything for Israel is a just society. And of course, the reason I say that this is so overwhelmingly poignant is because of the fact that we feel that there's such a total miscarriage, perversion of justice all around us. Yeah. Society is inundated with a lack of justice. So that's a pretty amazing thing to ponder. Yitro's the father-in-law of Moshe, his contribution here to our understanding of the importance of justice and his description of who the judges should be. And you shall discern from among the entire people men of accomplishment, God-fearing people, men of truth, people who despise money, and you shall appoint them leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of fifties, and leaders of tens.
Pretty amazing that Yitro came up with this suggestion almost by the by when he saw that Moses was from morning to night judging the people, and he said, "You can't go on this way." Back then he sat and they came up to me. They couldn't do it by iPhone or by WhatsApp or anything. He had to meet each person directly. And Yitro just said, you're gonna wear yourself out, and you're gonna wear out your people. You need to have more people, and that really is the architectural schematic structure of the entire system of justice of the Sanhedrin in Israel, all by Yitro.
And the beauty of the description here also is the accessibility and the familiarity and the downright down-hominess of the connection between the justices and the people, mm-hmm. and the ability for people to feel that they really are understood and really are represented.
A serious problem today
exactly.
In our country.
And it's interesting how Maimonides describes one of the major tasks of the Sanhedrin, of which, by the way, this is really what he's describing here. Yeah. He's describing this is the forerunner of the structure of a just society. The Rambam says that the purpose of justice, of the justices of the Sanhedrin, is to rescue those that are afflicted and those that are basically being held down and kidnapped. The word he uses, ashuk, latzil, ashuk mi oshko. How would you translate that, Yitzchak? To rescue him that is oppressed from his oppressors, right? And it's so amazing how, and I pointed this out before, how in the Shemona Esrei prayers that we say 3 times a day, every day, we have one paragraph there about where we plead to Hashem to restore our judges, right? Hashiva shoftenu, kiva rishona, restore our justices to us as of old. And in that paragraph, when we're praying to God to grant us proper justices, we say, "V'haser mimenu yagon va'anacha," and remove from us, save us from anguish and groaning. Mm-hmm. And so, when you think about the fact that the Shemona Esrei prayer, the 18 benedictions that was coined by the men of the Great Assembly, how this is like a litany of human striving, aspiration, and hope, right? The davening that we have, the beautiful prayers that we say, the Jewish people, three times a day, every day for thousands of years, that contains every possible up and down of what a person is. And by the way, of course, the sages make it clear that we're allowed to expand those prayers within every paragraph. We can add our own private prayers within the context of each idea. And in the one instance in the entire Shemona Esrei, to an expression connoting the feeling of frustration and
anguish before
the feeling of hopelessness, you know, and of usury and of being held down and being pitted against like an unfair force. The place that we mention that is in the paragraph where we're asking Hashem for
proper judges,
proper system of justice. We
yeah.
should merit to a proper system of justice. In other words, there is, like the Rambam says, "Latzel ashuk mioshko," to save one who is being. I remember the word I was trying to say in English: exploited. To save an exploited person from his exploiters, like people who would utilize administrative detention.
Right.
Administrative detention, this incredibly cruel, draconian rule that basically allows for a person to be incarcerated for life in 6 months increments without any evidence or without any trial. Right?
Or deporting people from their homes. Or denying people entry into homes if they've purchased. Or
destroying
there's so many
people's
things.
homes.
And there's nothing more, if you've ever, and we all have, speaking of the two of us, have personally been or known people who have suffered at the hands of judges who can't see past themselves,
right.
can't see past their own honor and their own sense of self-importance, and the yagon v'anacha, the anguish and the misery and the desire to scream out. I mean,
yes, and what that paragraph in our prayers teaches us is that there's no frustration, aggravation, and misery like a person who feels that there is no justice. It's like that painting. What's that?
Destroys all.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. The Scream.
Ah, right. The monk.
What?
Monk.
Exactly.
Edward Monk, yeah.
Right. The idea of a surreal world in which a person is so made to feel at the victim of malignant forces, and that's unfortunately what justice sometimes looks like. It's supposed to be blind, right? It's supposed to be, meaning it's supposed to be completely fair,
right?
Which is what Yitro is talking about here. You know, not a person who can be bought, not a person who's going to be influenced, not a person who can possibly have any other agenda. So interesting how this advice comes from Yitro, who of course has a very colorful history. He was a pagan god connoisseur. He was an expert, a professor, a PhD in every sort of false doctrine. He was the go-to. Knew them all.
The go-to guy.
He was, yes,
idolatry.
He was the go-to guy as far as any type of god worship, any type of idolatry. He knew it all. He had been there. He understood them all. He worshipped them all. He represented them all, and he was it was a smorgasbord of worship. And then he says here the most unbelievable thing. Moshe is telling him about everything that happened. He rejoiced over all the good that Hashem had done for Israel, and that Hashem had rescued it from the land of Israel. And then he said in verse 10 of chapter 18, "Blessed is Hashem, who has rescued you from the land of Egypt and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from under the hand of Egypt." And then he said in verse 11, "Now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods." And that is an incredibly illuminating verse that our sages tell us is very, very powerful. When he said, "Now I know."
Who would know better than Yitro? Who would know
exactly.
better than Yitro?
He should know. So when he said, "Now I know," according to the Zohar, that was such a moment of tremendous sanctification of God's name, because he knew better than anybody.
And if I'm not mistaken, the word for you translated as "and he rejoiced," vayichad, which can be understood as he unified. He saw the oneness. He realized the oneness of God and the oneness of God in this world, and that was where he got his joy from. His joy derived from that very understanding itself of the unity of God.
That is a very beautiful and innovative understanding of that word, which, as you know, is itself the subject of a controversy, what it means exactly. And that's the most beautiful way of all of looking at that word, that Yitro rejoiced, and that the source of true joy in this world, Vayichad Yitro, it says Vayichad Yitro, Al Kol HaTova, he rejoiced over all the good that Hashem did. But the joy itself is a vision, an understanding of unity. When a person sees the whole, when a person understands the spin, and the total comprehensiveness of Hashem's godliness and unity in this world, that's the source of joy, that there's not a bunch of apps, a bunch of departments like he had already thought, that there's only one thing, and that is Hashem.
And that, of course, really is the basis for the justice system that he would then proceed to teach Moses, that the unity of God is the basis of justice in this world.
And then the unity of God, we move on with that theme, which it's so beautiful how you just made me understand that the Parashat really can be seen as one theme, because you're right, that everything stems from that word Vayichad in a way, because the unity of Hashem is the basis for the system of justice as well. And then, of course, when we come to the Sinai Revelation, that, like we said, everything's been leading up to this from day one, from the creation of Adam, from the tree of knowledge, from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Everything has been leading to the moment now of Israel's receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai, for this light to go out into the whole world. And, of course, the unity of Hashem is the basis of everything. First of all, as the verses indicate, he somehow showed them that there isn't anything else, right? There's this whole idea that our sages expound upon, that he opened up all of the heavens, and they saw in the clearest possible way, and we'll be speaking more about this in our video this week, God willing, if you don't know, that they saw in the clearest possible way that there isn't anything else in this world but Hashem.
Nothing.
Right? So they come to Mount Sinai, and they're getting ready for this revelation, which, like I said, everything until now that we've been talking about in such glowing terms, the incredible wonders of the Exodus from Egypt, the plagues, the splitting of the sea, which was the highest level of prophecy, that's all like old school when it comes to the Sinai Revelation, which was basically a suspension of the situation that came into the world from the time they ate from the tree of knowledge. It was temporarily suspended. Like, everything became pristine and returned to its original state. Everything became perfect. And they saw this incredible understanding on this level of absolute perfect knowledge that there's only Hashem in the world. But if I may, before we come to the actual idea, first of all, I want you to know there's one verse here which seems so simple, but every word in the Torah is so beautiful. In the third month from the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, on this day they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim and arrived at the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. And those words, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, are so incredibly deep, because, like Rav Hirsch points out, everywhere that they went, they had to first check, is this a good place, they have to scout it out, is this a good place to stay? When they came there, and they came to that place that Hashem had said to Moshe, in this place you will serve me, immediately they encamp opposite the mountain, getting ready. This is it. This is going to be it. And then, Moshe ascended to God. Hashem called him from the mountain, saying, "So you shall say to the house of Jacob and relate to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to Egypt, that I have borne you on the wings of eagles and brought you to me." Whoa, and now we have this deal here. And I don't see any kind of unsubscribe link here or opt out of this list, right? There's no unsubscribe button here. And now, if you hearken well to me and observe my covenant, you shall be to me the most beloved treasure of all peoples, for mine is the entire world. You shall be to me a kingdom of ministers and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. This is so profound, because the whole idea here is, again, like, why have we gone through all of this? Why did he take us out of Egypt? Was it just because of his Hashem's strong sense of social justice? Because he's anti-slavery? Because it wasn't right that there was an oppressed people? Or is there something going on here? Is there a goal? Is there a purpose for this people? And like I said, I don't see an unsubscribe option here. Every single Jew is considered to be, to some extent, a Kohen, a ministering priest, because the whole nation has a job. And you know, this is a very loaded verse here. I'm sorry. This is very, very specific, right? There's nothing here about an option, or if you feel like it.
And it's not PC.
No, definitely not. And if you understand what he's saying, I mean, what is the role of the Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash? What do the serving, ministering priests in the Holy Temple do? Their job is to bring Hashem's truth into the world through the service in the temple. And so too, every member of the nation is to be a Kohen to the whole world, right? You shall be to me a kingdom of priests, every single one of you. What does that mean? It means that there is an obligation here to serve in the world like the Kohen himself is serving in the Holy Temple. That is so powerful. It's a full-time job. It is why you are going to be receiving the Torah in the first place. It is why you're going to be receiving everything now that stems forth from the Ten Commandments, that all stems forth from the first word, Anochi, I am Hashem your God who took you out of Egypt. So it is quite clear that this is the purpose of everything now. We're all coming into our own now. This is the moment of our real reality check. We're going to be entering into this covenant now, and it is very, very serious what our responsibility is to the whole world, to be this nation of Kohanim that bring Hashem's truth and light into the world. Everything's been leading up until this, and frankly, world history has been leading up to this and is continuing from that point now, and Israel is called upon to bring the light of the Torah to the whole world. Stay with us, please, here in snowy Jerusalem. We'll be right back. If it don't snow, Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven with Rabbi Chaim Richman from the Temple Institute here in Jerusalem. Today is the 16th day of the month of Shvat, 5776, the 26th day of January 2016. I'd just like to say a few things, Rabbi, before we continue. A few things about Parashat Yitro, this week's Torah reading. One thing which always tickles me about the Parashat, and it's just a beautiful thing, is how humble, how down home, homespun, modest Torah is. That in this very parsha, that the Ten Commandments, which, as you cited, the opening 10 Commandments of the Torah, which is the reason for creation, and which starts with Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God who took you out of Egypt, starts with Anochi with an aleph, which Bereshit, in the beginning, starts with a bet, which is the second letter of the aleph bet of the Hebrew alphabet, and aleph is the first. And so there was a question posed way back when, why would the Torah start with a bet when aleph is the first letter? And the answer is because we only have creation because of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, because I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt to give you Torah. Now this parsha, however, with this height, it doesn't get higher than this. This is the one thing in reality that everything else revolves around. It starts with, Yitro bringing his daughter, Moshe's wife, and their 2 children, a little domestic scene, very beautiful. And Moshe goes and they hug and they kiss, and then they all sit together with the elders and they make some offerings to Hashem. Very, very down home, domestic, modest little scene. And it ends, of course, right after the 10 Commandments. The next commandment is build for me an altar of earth, that no metal implements should touch it. Again, it's all about the here and now when it comes right down to it. And it's all about the values that make us human beings and the values that we can build upon to create a proper society in this world. And to me, the fact that the Parasha begins and ends where it does is just remarkable, because you can't get more modest than that. And the extent of the modesty really is a hint at the incredible height and depth of the message that this Parasha conveys.
And as far as what we mentioned earlier, being the nation of priests and thus responsible for bringing the word of the Torah to the world. So again, that is the culmination of everything, and yet the beginning of everything. That's the purpose of the Jewish people in this world, and hopefully we're getting that straight after all this time. Slowly, we have to understand that that's what we are. That's what we are all about.
And the need to establish and express justice, again, like he mentioned earlier, is the basis and the foundation for everything. And it is a struggle to this day. And just yesterday, unfortunately, a young Jewish woman, 23 years old, Shlomit Gligman, was murdered again by 2 Arabs, 2 Palestinians, a 22 and a 16-year-old. And this is a week after 2 other women were also attacked in their home neighborhoods. And it was after the 16-year-old murderer of Daphne Meir admitted to his interrogators that he had got his inspiration for the murder from Palestinian Authority media, television, which is 24/7 in praise of murdering Jews. And
indeed, there was an article that Abbas's assistant went to pay a mourner's consolation call to the family of the terrorist. And
where's the justice? There's just the yagon v'anacha. There's just the anguish.
This young girl, she was going to be 24, I think, next week. A beautiful girl who had everything to live for. And, who cares, basically? The world is like absolutely... And again, every story has to be that she was killed in the West Bank settlement, you know. That explains everything. Well, she deserved it, as it were. And... by the way, have you noticed, Yitzchak, I'm afraid that this is like a new precedent that's going on, that women are being attacked.
Yeah.
And in stores. Like, this is the new thing now.
Right.
It's all, this is now.
This is trend. This is the trend.
They get this idea
what's trendy
now, this trend, They gave up for a little while on buses and trains, and, oh, by the way, they've been rocking the train and causing tremendous damage in Jerusalem, like, every day. Now they have this thing about going after women in shopping centers.
Right. And they also apparently planted a few bombs, which were discovered before they could explode at the same area.
So, the cry for justice, the cry to be saved, for the exploited individual to be saved from his exploiters, the cry for proper justice for people that have no agenda, that can't be bought, and that have most importantly fear of God. That isn't just about when a person has litigation, or a person needs to have some sort of a civil suit. It's the whole nation. The justice that we need is for life, and this is the best example of all. It's like, where is our leadership? Where is our integrity? Where is the fulfillment of this verse that you shall be for me a treasured people, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation? If our leadership was feeling that and rising to the occasion and willing to take that upon themselves and willing to take the responsibility for that obligation, then we wouldn't be seeing this. We wouldn't be seeing this. And nor would we have any tolerance whatsoever for the intervention and the opinions of the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
So this is another tremendously tragic death. And this is the price that we pay for being the people that we are described here as a treasured people, the kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This is exactly what it's all about. We have no private life. We have no individual life. We are here for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to demonstrate to the whole world that there is only one God. And that's what a Jew living in the land of Israel is doing. And that's why a girl 23 years old living in the land of Israel, that's why she's a target. Because this is what we represent. And those that are opposed to everything that's good in the world that the Torah represents are trying to blot that out. Just like last week we had in the verse in Bishalach about the hand on the throne of God. And Hashem says it's my battle with Amalek, because they're trying to blot my name out. When a 23-year-old girl is murdered in a grocery store, it's because that same force is trying to blot out Hashem's name from the world. Doesn't matter what Obama or his ambassador Dan Shapiro, or the woman who I have a block against her name with the stringy hair from the European Union. Mm-hmm. What's her name again?
I don't know.
Begins with an M.
Yeah, something.
It doesn't matter what any of them say, because this is what we're up against, and it's our battle. And if only we had the wherewithal and the moxie, as you would say, Yitzchak, if we only had the faith in the righteousness of our own path to be able to go and do what it is that we need to do. So here, after the revelation at Sinai, which lists here the Ten Commandments, we know the whole Torah was given to Moshe on Mount Sinai. We read in verse 15 of chapter 20, the entire people saw the thunder and the flames. The entire people saw the thunder and the flames, the sound of the shofar and the smoking mountain. The people saw and trembled and stood from afar. And of course, it wouldn't be Parashat Yitro if we didn't mention our favorite word, synesthesia, which we mention, which means the blending of the synthesization of the senses.
Sensory perceptions.
Yes, sensory perception we began
Say
with.
that 5 times fast.
And the idea being, yes, the people saw the thunder. V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot. The verse says the people saw the thunder because part of the oneness of Hashem that we were talking about in the beginning today, the whole idea of Vayichad, the joy that comes from understanding the unity of all things and the single reality of Hashem as being reality, then there are no borders really. There are no borders. There are no departments. There's no specificity, because there's only oneness. And so the people were released from their physical vision and physical hearing. They were released temporarily from their expectations. Their systems were in abeyance. They were temporarily rendered ineffectual to perceive the true reality. They had to sense it with something else. They had to sense it with the totality of their being. And so the verse says here, 19, Hashem said to Moshe, so shall you say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. You shall not make images of what is with me. Gods of silver, gods of gold, shall you not make for yourself. And this idea, the sages tell us, that you have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven, is that Hashem somehow showed them, opened up for them, I don't know, unpeeled the orange, took the peel off and showed them all the way through that there isn't anything else anywhere. That can't be a physical seeing either. That is some sort of very, very positive, very deeply rooted knowledge equals truth that just superseded their senses, superseded everything, and made it clear to them, and apparently to us too, that because we have inherited this, that there is nothing else but Hashem. And after all of this, like you mentioned, after the most perfect realization of the purpose of life and everything else being absolutely useless and meaningless, you are to me a kingdom of priests. This that you have now, this knowledge that you have now, this perception, this reality, now take it, and this is your life's calling, to bring this to the whole world. And then the Parsha ends with what we like to call the 11th Commandment, which is just so amazing. And that is the altar of earth, which is like the absolute perfect
grounding
synopsis of everything that we're talking about here. Is the opposite of what you might have thought, the opposite of what you might have reacted, the opposite diametrically of what you might be reacting. You might be reacting like, how can I possibly keep this moment alive? Like last week we were talking about the bitter and the sweet on our video teaching. We were talking about like, I can't always feel like this. I can't always keep this moment at this high. So here, there they are, and Hashem somehow opens up the heavens and shows them that there's nothing else. Ein od milvado, which means there's nothing else but Hashem. And they must have been like, how can we possibly go with this now the rest of our lives, give it over to our children forever, this reality that we've seen, that there's nothing but Hashem? How can we possibly ever keep this moment? I mean, talk about the 3 days after, the splitting of the sea and the mara, the bitterness of realizing like I can't always be on top of things, I can't always feel as motivated. They must have been like, how can we possibly Instagram this, tweet this, post this? How can we possibly keep this moment alive? And so Hashem says, actually, I put you in this world, again, because I love this world, and the physical world is where I am, and the world that I love, and the only world that counts. And so, just like Yaakov saw the ladder, right? Yaakov saw the ladder, which was mutzav arza, which was planted on the ground, even though its head was in heaven. The whole perspective of a Torah life, of the whole mindset of the Jewish experience is that we're in this world, and this is the one that we can elevate everything about it. That's what the Torah is all about. It's not about tripping out on some mystical experience. The real experience is to be a person in this world, to be a good person, and to walk with Hashem in this world. That's what the mitzvot, the commandments, are all about. It's about sanctifying God through our simple physical lives. And so Hashem says, you want to keep this moment high? You want to represent me in this world? It's very simple. This world, this earth, this dirt, stones, that's how you serve me. You make an altar for me, and you bring me an offering on an altar of earth. At that one statement is so comprehensive and so demonstrative and so revelatory as to what Hashem expects from us in this world. He doesn't expect us to be something that we're not. He doesn't expect us to be, abstract. He expects us to bring His presence into this world through the world itself, and that's really the significance of the altar of earth.
And I would say, we'll talk about this later when we study Vayikra, Deuteronomy, which focuses on the offerings. But I would say, because of the juxtaposition here between the revelation and the anesthesia, is that what it's called?
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia, the melding of the senses as an expression of God's unity. I would say that the offering of offerings on the altar is another way for us as human beings to also create a unified reality that can elevate us and create a connection to Hashem. Like I say, that's something we can discuss.
I'm so glad that you said that, because the offerings in the temple, as we teach constantly and every year during these parshiot, and I think we try to get it as clear as possible, they're so misunderstood. And one level, which you so eloquently, succinctly cited now, is the fact that all of creation comes together as a one unified force and is represented in the Holy Temple. And the idea of the offerings really is the expression of unity of all creation in acknowledgement of who Hashem is, with, of course, man being at the center and everything designed so that man can be elevated consciously and realize what he has to do in this world. And of course, it's all about choosing between right and wrong. All roads lead to the Holy Temple. Everything is about the Holy Temple. If until now we said that all roads have led to this moment, from the moment of creation, from the beginning of Bereshit, through the whole saga of the history of the forefathers, the formation of the people of Israel, the descent into darkness in Egypt, the bondage, and the redemption, and coming through the sea and coming to the foot of Mount Sinai. It's about to blow wide open, the whole thing now, because we're about to erect the tabernacle at the foot of Mount Sinai. And that's what it's really all about. That's where we're going. We're going with the plan of bringing Hashem into this world, and man stating, yes, we want God to be in this world. That's the whole idea of everything that we're coming to now with the rest of the book of Exodus. The rest of the book of Exodus is going to now drastically change into the formation of the laws of the nation and the tabernacle, which is the sanctuary that holds the law of the nation, pulsating, beating like a true functioning heart. And then the whole book of Vayikra, which is going to be Leviticus, the idea of living with Hashem in this world and gaining the maximum out of the human experience so that we can always be drawing closer and closer to the reality of the one true living God in our lives. That's what the service of the Holy Temple is all about. So everything has been leading up to this moment, and now it becomes very clear to us what we are to do in this world.
Speaking of the service of the Holy Temple, Rabbi, yesterday, Tu B'Shvat, the Temple Institute, with other organizations concerned with the Temple Mount, with the Holy Temple.
Temple Revival, Temple Consciousness.
Temple Revival. We participated in an event.
A beautiful event.
In the Chorva Synagogue in Jerusalem, the Old City. And among other things, the event provided a reenactment performed by Kohanim, temple priests, in their Bigdei Kuhuna, in their temple garment, in their priestly garments, a reenactment of the baking, preparation, the baking of the showbread and the placing of the showbread, the 12 loaves, on the golden table of the showbread. Of course, we have a golden table of the showbread in the Temple Institute's Holy Temple Visitor Center.
That's actually been created according to the exact requirements of Torah. That is actually kosher for use now in the Holy Temple. But for this practice drill, a demo was created.
And again, by running these demonstrations, reenactments, not only can we educate the public and get people
motivated,
fired up, and into the temple consciousness that is growing in the world.
How are we going to have the temple and start with all of these practices if people haven't been learning about how to do them?
And the fact of the matter is, we have to relearn how to do these things. Even the baking of the showbread and creating the special shape that it has to have is an art form and a science that needs to be rediscovered and relearned and practiced. And that's what this is about.
We have some beautiful, absolutely stunning photographs of the event and the very illustrious speakers. And the beautiful baking of these extraordinary special chalot, these loaves of bread, as they're described in the Talmud by the sages, as Moshe was instructed from Hashem at Mount Sinai, how the loaves are to appear. All of this can be seen on the Temple Institute's Facebook page, which is, I believe, over 167,000 followers now. Mm-hmm. And we're having a blast on the Temple Institute's Facebook page. You really need to follow it because we very faithfully update the Facebook page of the Temple Institute, generally speaking, twice a day, if not more, with news of the Temple Institute, or with our productions, with Temple Mount news, very varied content. Some of it is totally educational. Some of it is news about the political situation as it affects the Temple Mount. Important updates can always be found there. And I want to say that the fact that the event yesterday was fairly well attended, despite the inclement weather and the tremendously cold temperatures here in Jerusalem, is another indication of the beautiful reality that we have a new generation here in the land of Israel, where the Holy Temple is really, really important and beckoning and calling out to people from all walks of life, Jewish people of all ages that are showing tremendous motivation and sincere dedication to everything about the restoration of the Holy Temple.
And again, the particular practice of the Showbread, which brings God's blessing into the world, symbolizes God's material blessing for Am Yisrael, for Israel, and for the world, is just another expression and aspect of what we've been talking about in this week's Parsha, with God's reality, God's unity is in this world, and God can be served in this world, and we can recognize God's unity in this world with the actions of our own hands, and something so basic and physical and you might even say mundane as loaves of bread can be elevated and uplifted in order to express and even bring in God's blessing
and to literally
into
be
this
placed
world.
in God's presence.
Thank you for being with us. Temple Talk.